Hello and welcome back to Lesson 2, Anticipation. Before we get going on that though, I want to say a few things about workflow just before we get started. When I was approached to do this training, I sent out a workflow survey to all the animators at work and a couple other guys I've worked with over the years because I wanted to make sure that I wasn't presenting some Frankenstein hacky workflow that I've kind of slapped together over the past few years of doing this. I wanted to make sure I was presenting something kind of relevant. So I had 22 animators write back to me, and the answers were actually kind of surprising because basically nobody works the same. Some animators do thumbnail sketches of all their poses on paper first before they ever get to the computer. I can't draw, so this process is largely ridiculous for me. Some animators act out everything in front of a mirror before they do it. I used to do this a lot in the beginning, but I don't really do it anymore. Some do all their blocking with stepped or linear keys, and you guys all know what that means now because you're graph editor masters after last week. I don't work with linear or stepped. I usually set it to flat. I just find it gets me to the end result faster. Again, preference. Some people will film themselves and load that into the 3D scene for reference. I have done that. I don't do it very often. If I do need reference, I'll probably just film it on my phone and keep it in a QuickTime in the other monitor. Some animators barely touch the rig, and they do everything in the graph editor. I know some people that literally set their first poses and they just tweak the whole animation using the graphs. I couldn't work that way. Some people swear by the dope sheet, and some people never use it. Last week I mentioned that I'll pop into there once in a while, but for the most part, the dope sheet functionality is right above the timeline, so I don't go in there. Some animators will animate all their hardest shots first. Some will do all the easiest shots first. I usually kind of pick out one that I think I might want for my reel and kind of block out a chunk of time for that. So I'll start with easy shots, then I'll do my super hard shots, and then I'll taper off the schedule with the lighter shots because no one wants to be racing to the deadline with all the hard stuff left. It's tough to keep the momentum up. So there is no real right or wrong way to animate. It's about what's comfortable for you. So I like to think that I've got a pretty efficient workflow, but you may just not like doing some of the things I do, and your workflow will come to you over time. But one thing that can be said for sure is that no matter what your workflow is, there's always a way that you can trim some fat off of it. And that's what we're going to do now. So before we get started, I'm going to make a couple fixes to the rig that are going to help us with our workflow. A little bit help speed things up. One thing I noticed last week that got a bit annoying, I didn't pick a very good color for these curves. You might have done different, but when I select these, the selection color is almost identical to the not selected color, which isn't very helpful. So I'm just going to select these three and go into the display. And I'm going to change these to something a bit more logical. There we go. So now we can actually tell what's selected. So you may have noticed when you were doing your animation that there's a lot of clicking, a lot of selecting and deselecting of curves to try and make this thing move around. And it can get a bit annoying. And it'd be nice if there was a way that you could kind of cycle through your curves faster rather than having to select them manually all the time. And fortunately for us, there's a feature called Pickwalking, and it's real easy to set up in MODO. So Pickwalking will let you travel through the rig really quickly with hotkeys, and it's amazing for fingers and arms, stuff where there's a lot of controls close together and you're just tweaking. So if we select the top controller here and go to the assembly tab, you can see there's a selection section here, and this will basically let you map your arrow keys to where you want the selection to go. So for this, I'm on the top control. If I pick walk up, I guess I want to go to the main, and because we've labeled everything, it's nice and easy to find in the list. And if we go down, I guess I want to go to the mid. So if I select the mid, you can see that it's already filled in the pick walk up channel, which is nice. So if we go down, I'm going to want to go to CTL bottom. Now if I select bottom, I'm probably going to want to go to the main. You can see that it's already put mid and made that connection. I don't have to do it again. So bottom is going to go to the main, and if I select the main, you'll see that both of them are filled in already. So now if you select your controls and hit the up arrow key, you can see we're cycling through the curves nice and quickly. So for posing, if you hit your W key, this, go to rotate, see it back on the main with this, up arrow, move that, down arrow, move this, up arrow, rotate, and you can see how fast you could pose everything working like that. Very efficient. Imagine if you had a spider or something with a lot of parts. You could go in and customize your rig so that you could just rifle through the controls. Like for spider legs, you can go in one direction, pose them all out. Just very nice, quick way of dealing with complex selections. So as you guys are working through your squishy box, you probably noticed there were a couple of times where you missed controls or didn't have everything selected and had to go back and make sure that everything was keyed on the same frame. And while it's okay to do that with 3 curves, you can figure it out pretty easily. Imagine if you had a T-Rex or something else huge that has, 30, 50, 70 controls, and they all have to be keyed at the same time. If you try and do it manually, you'll be depressed and you'll miss curves for sure. So ideally what you want is some kind of container that holds all the curves, and you can hit one button and it keys everything inside of it. And this is what actors are for. So if we go down here to actors, I'm going to create a new actor. We'll call it Squishy Box. And it's an actor. And there's a bunch of options here, but for explanation's sake, I'm going to make an empty one. And hit OK. So if we go up to our Groups tab and click in here, you can see we now have a group called Squishy Box. And inside the group is Actions, Poses, Items, and Channels. All this stuff here can be found across the bottom here. This is kind of like the GUI for this stuff. So right now we have no channels, we have no items, we just made an empty one. So let's load some channels into it. So if you select your top channel, go to the Channels tab, you'll see we got all our channels in here. Now you don't want to take position 0, because this is the one we used to zero out our controls, because it's a meter off the ground, and that value has to go somewhere, so it gets put onto this. So it's stored up here, and this keeps our channels clean. So we want the positions, rotations, and scales. So I'm just going to select, I'm just going to manually select these. So I've got 9 channels, and all I got to do is just drag these up into the Channels tab. And now if you look, it's kind of tough to see, but you can see our actor now has 9 channels in it. So I can go to the next one. We don't want position 0. That's the one that's holding our... This control was raised 500 millimeters off the ground. And to zero out this channel, again, that value has to go somewhere, so it's hiding there. So we'll click 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And just drag these up into here. Now you see we've got 18 channels. So we'll grab this one. We'll pop these open here. This one doesn't have a 0 channel on it because it was made at 0, so we didn't have to freeze anything. I'll click this one. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. I just drag these up into here. So now you'll see our actor has 27 channels in it. And if we pop open the Channels tab, just pull this down, you can see everything we've got in here. We've got the scales, rotations, scales, position, all our stuff that we put in there. So if you look down here now, you'll notice we have this red button here, and if you click this, this will key everything in our actor. You can see a key's been put at frame 1. You might just have to switch the, oh yeah, there you go. Just make sure you've got this box here selected, and it'll show all the curves. So you can see with that one click we've keyed all the scale, rotation, and position. Scale, rotation, position are 27 channels. So now if I go to frame 15, I'm going to pull this over here. I'm going to up arrow with our Pickwalking up here and here. I go back and hit the key button. You can see that everything has been keyed again. I'll go to frame 30, move this, up arrow, move this, and key it again. We always know that we're not leaving any keys behind, that everything's coming with us. So what's anticipation? Anticipation is used to prepare the audience for an action. It's the action before the action. So a good example of this would be pitching a baseball. The wind-up before the throw would be the anticipation. Anytime a character jumps, the bending of the knees, that would be the anticipation of the jump. It's easiest to see anticipation in big physical moves, but if you watch animation closely, you'll see it even in the most subtlest of acting scenes. So here's a few examples of what anticipation looks like in action. This is a creature animation I did for a project a long time ago. And he does a big roar, and then he pulls his head back and he spikes this guy and cuts him in half. So if we watch it again, he settles into this position, and before the roar he's going to do a huge pullback. He's going to get shot in the face, a big pullback. This is the anticipation of this roar. And then before he throws his head off to the side, he anticipates, and then roar up, boom, and cuts him in half again. Some of you guys might remember this, bolo skating. Anytime you jump, you need to anticipate the jump. Bend, jump. Bend, jump. That's an anticipation. So here's another example of anticipation. This is a lot slower anticipation. He puts the knife down, slowly pulls his head up, bang. Turn this off, the volume here. Puts it down, bang, anticipation. That's a lot slower, but that's for dramatic reasons. Alright, so let's start doing some anticipation. So I was thinking it'd be a lot cooler for us if we had something for Squishy Box to jump over. So head over to the modeling tab, hit N, and we're just going to grab ourselves a cube. Go to Edit, Center to Bounding Box Bottom. If you hit the W key, you'll see that we're at the bottom here. And we'll hit 0. And now we're nice and flat on the ground. So we'll go back to the Animate tab, pop open the graph. A little perspective for a sec. So at frame 1, I'll push him back, say, I don't know, negative 10 meters, I guess. And hit S, and you can see it dropped our positions in here and a key on frame 1. So now I'm going to move to frame 96 and start pulling them. And as you see, there's our Z curves coming up. And I'll just put 10 meters here. There. So now if we scrub, we can see he starts off at negative 10. Right around the middle mark, he passes over 0. And then he finishes off at plus 10 on Z. So I'll deselect that, and I'm going to go into the side view again. There we go. And back to frame 1. So now we can go down, we can select our Squishy Box, and we can key it. And you can see that it's added keys into all our channels here at frame 1. Sometimes this doesn't show up, the key doesn't automatically load, so if you just select squishy box again down here, just kind of click on it. It'll load your keys up, and you can see we've set keys on everything that's in our that we put into the actor. All 27 channels are keyed at frame 1. So I think for this exercise we're not going to use the main, we'll actually use these 3 controls here, and we'll get it to work like that. Okay, so we're fine up until here. We know we're going to want to take off the ground right about here. So let's key that. You can see it's dropped a key in here. We're going to want to be up in the ground here, so I'm just going to select all these, hit the W key, move these up. Now you can see what's happened. Because I've moved these up, I'm only affecting the position Y on the 3 curves. So they're getting auto-keyed. They're turning red. But you'll notice the other keys are all still turning green. And that's not good for us. Auto-key works, but it only keys channels that are animated. So to make sure that everything gets animated, we got to hit this again. Now everything's keyed. The reason we key everything will make more sense later. Okay, so it jumps up, and then we could have them land. So I'm going to go back to this pose because we want to land in the same spot. Middle click, you get your little green tick here, and key. So we can go in, or we could tweak all these curves. We could select position Y, position Y. And where is it? Y, Y, Y. Okay, so if we go in now, we could select these bottom ones. We can set these to linear. And we could tweak our curves like we did last week. Now, pop, we're getting a little bit of bounce off the ground. But what is anticipation? Anticipation is the action before the action. So we need to add our anticipation in here. So I'm thinking we'll start at around frame 35, key everything, and then I'll go down to here. I'm going to push this down. Push this down. And then we learned last week that if you squash anything, you got to maintain its volume. So we're going to have to scale this out too. And this is why you key everything. Because now it knows from here, between frame 35 and 42, we're scaling. If we were only keying the stuff that was auto-keyed and leaving stuff behind, this scale would have started at frame 1. It would have slowly scaled all the way down to where we set the next scale key. But by keying everything in a row, you have a lot more control. So I'm going to put this one down. And this is a good chance to use your Pickwalking. Down, key up, key down. Okay, so I'm going to key this. So now, nothing happens. All our keys are flat. We go down. And then bang. Wait a minute. Something looks wrong. What's wrong with this? Okay, so if you stand up right now, just get out of your chair, try and jump off the floor without straightening your legs. It's impossible. You can't leave the ground until your legs actually go straight. So that's the pose we're missing here. If you watch it, we go down into this, which is great, but then we start to go up. Everything starts to go up, which isn't great. So we might need a little bit more time here. So we're going to need to move this to happen earlier. And this is what's awesome about actors. Because everything's in one group, under one key, if we take this now, make sure nothing's selected so that only the squishy box is selected. All our controls are selected. You can see that here. If we take this now, because we need some more time to make this work, if we pull this back, you can see in the graph that whole pose is happening, is is moving back. So we could slide this all the way back to 15 if we want. You can see what's happening to the curve. So now nothing happens. Now he's going to do the anticipation from 15 to 40. Really slow. And he's still not going to jump properly. But this is a really good way to do your timing. You can move stuff and start blocking stuff out real easily. Keeps everything nice and in a nice straight line. Okay, so we need, this pose is good. I'm going to move these back because I think we need a bit more space. I'm going to copy this pose here to here. And we'll set these to linear. You can see they were just flat. So he's going to bend down, he's going to hold it for a frame, but we don't want it. We're going to take this and we're going to stretch this out. This will be our takeoff, and he's going to scale in because he's getting skinny. And then we're going to hit our key. So now what's happening, we deselect, all the curves get selected again. If nothing's selected, the actor will be selected and it'll load up your curve. So now what's happening, he's going to go down, down, pop into this position, then pop into the other one. But if you look here, because we put flat keys in, you can see what's happening. Anytime you get a peak like this happening in your curves, that's not good. So we should look at what that is. It's probably the translation in Y. And you can see what happens. It goes up. This is for the top one. Right? So it's going to go up and it's going to stop. And then it's going to start again. So if we go in, we're going to rotate this like that. You see we'll get a much nicer motion. Bottom one's okay. And mid. Position Y. So we'll tweak that curve too. So now, boom. And we can go add a little extra in here when he lands. On this pose here, we can go back, say to this frame before, and we can start pulling some of this stuff down. So I'm pulling this down, I'm pickwalking, scaling, put it up. Pull this one in here a little bit, this Y, because you see it's getting a weird from the weighting. So if we just pull this handle back, I'll get rid of the curve there. So now it's going to go up and stretch. We're getting a weird pop though because we've come forward. We don't really want to go forward in Z, so what's going on there? You can see that we're sliding up and our Z is moving back. So let's see if we can find that. There it is. We'll get rid of that key. And I guess I put a little in the body too that I didn't need, so we'll get rid of that. You can see there's the Z. And we're getting a weird pop here. So let's check out this curve. Something's happening there, and there it is. You can see it goes up, comes down, and doesn't know what to do with itself. So we'll select this key here. And we'll just pull in that handle, get that kink out of there. There we go. So we got our little animation here, and that's cool. But what happens if he's got to jump a box that's this tall? Now what's he going to do? That's not going to work. So you've probably heard the saying, for every action there is an equal and opposite reaction. And this holds really true for anticipation. If your character's going to reel back really far, like a baseball pitcher, you expect a huge motion coming out of it. You can't just go back like an inch and then just take off. Yeah, but they do it in cartoons for comedy effect, but to make things look heavy and look like they're working in proper physics, you got to take that into account. So for our guy to get over this, we're going to have to make some fixes. Okay, so you could save this out as your small jump. We're just going to have to go in and maybe tweak some of the timing of this and make these poses bigger to get him over this. So let's see where he's got to get up to here. So we'll go in, we'll select all these, the W key, push these all up. You'll see our curves adjusting. There we go. You can see that just looks wrong. It's too fast and there's no hang time. So, and this anticipation needs to be way bigger. You can almost do like an anticipation on the anticipation if you want it, which sounds a bit crazy, but you could. So we're going to take this pose. Actually, I'm going to deselect this. We're going to take this pose right here. Slide this back a bit. This is our where he begins the squish right here. Pull this over. And we're going to add kind of a pre-anticipation here. So we'll add a key here. On this one, have him go up here. So he's going to like warm up before he goes down. So we'll squish him in a little bit. And again, because we've been keying everything, everything's updating. So now he's going to do nothing. And he's going to go up, and then down into the anticipate. Now he's really giving her. And we can scale him out way bigger on this one. And we're probably going to have to really push this up here now. Yeah. He's going to have to do that a little bit faster. So deselect him. Because he's deselected, we go straight back to the actor. We got a pose here. Pose here. We should just drag these two. We could pull them back in time. So now they're happening a little bit earlier to give him that room to clear. So I could select this one, and I could pull. This isn't pulling. Actually, yeah, it would. So go to none. If you deselect it, now you're only dealing with the curves. If you move stuff around in here, when you go back to the actor, they won't be lined up anymore. So I'm going to pull this here just to get the bottom up faster. But then if we go back to the squishy box rig, you can see that these keys no longer line up. They've been offset. So now he's bending down and really pushing it. And then he's going to pow, and he sucks his legs up. But now they're going down too quick. So if we go here, that's not good. You can see he's starting to come down too quick. So we could just select this and pull this handle out. If we select our Y curve, you can see what's happening here. So we can break this. Oh, sorry, linear. And then, there you go. So now he's going to go down and bang, and it's going to snap up. But now he's getting up too quick now. So now we got to do it to the middle one. Get Y up there quicker. So remember from last week, you can middle click to slide controls up. There we go. That's a bit nicer curve there. Now he shouldn't hit, so he's going to bend down, stretch. See, now the top one's not going fast enough. He's going through it. So we're going to fix that one. Push that up. Pull this out. See, they all need some more hang time. So an easy way to do that would just be go back to our actor. And when he gets up here, just pull these poses, make them last longer. So now he's at the top of the arc longer. Pull this one out even further. Oh, but we don't have a key on his bottom here. So if we select the W, you just throw a key in here. So if you middle click, you'll add a key. This is actually really nice. I'll delete this for a sec. If you hit S, you can watch what will happen here. The curve gets a little bit wonky because you've thrown a value in with some weighting in it. But if you middle click on the curve to add it, you'll see your curve doesn't, your tangents don't change. And that's a really nice feature because right now we just want to add a key and then we just want to do the weighting ourselves. So again, I'll delete this. I know I want to just push this up a bit, so I'll just middle click, on the one you want, middle click and push it up. Middle click and push it up. So now he's going to bend down, squish, up, clear, and then down. Well, it's not a very good landing because you don't decelerate before you hit the ground, right? So we could probably just push, just delete this key, and we'll make this just come right into the ground like that, hard. So yes, we just need to fix this one here. If we look at the position Y for this one right here, this is CTL mid. Position Y, you can see it's hitting in an odd way. So we'll delete that, and we'll just put that up. So now we bend. Some more room here. Up, down, and down. So let's do a preview, see how it looks. There we go. Anticipation.